For having me here today. Networking is really about creating relationships. And to illustrate the importance of what a relationship can do in business, about 2 weeks ago I had a client call me and ask me to get a candidate for them because one of their admins had quit. And when I started going through my list of companies that I usually work with, I have my go-to company that I've used for 5 years, and really I have not had to use another company since I started using them. And when I called them, I left a message, no call back. Left a message, no call back. Wow, I guess I need to move to number 2 on the list. So I did. I went to number 2. Well, my client didn't like them because they charged too much. So I went to number 3. Well, number 3 just so happened to be a client. They weren't a client. They were a company that I had met about 2 years ago through networking. And through the course of the last 2 years, I had made contact with them and stayed in contact with them. About 3 months ago, I had lunch with one of the owners. And so I had stayed in contact, and it worked out that they actually got a candidate for me, and it was a top-notch person, exactly what I needed for this particular situation. And it was a tough one because the person that I needed had to have some specific qualities in order to meet the bill for this problem. The thing about it was it had to be done really cheaply. And people don't really get that excited about doing a lot of work for a little bit of money. So anyway, they did that. And I am convinced that the reason they were willing to go above and beyond was because I had created that relationship ahead of time. And one of the things I wanted to bring up to all of you is the fact that in networking, you really do need to lay the groundwork for future things that are going on with your life. And this book, I had bought this a long time ago. I got it on Amazon. I'd recommend it to you. It's called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. And the premise of the book is make the relationships before you need them. Don't wait until you need a job to start going out and networking so that you can get a job. You need to start doing it right now, and I recommend people to start going out and networking whether you have a job or not. Get out there and network once a week, at the very least once a month. But I really recommend once a week, and get out there and do that. So I think we've established that it's important to do the networking. So where do you go when you decide you're going to do some networking? There's a lot of options out there. There are the formal networking through the chamber mixers. You have the business networking, international, BNI. They are a great organization for networking. But those are the more formal ways to network. There are so many things that you do during your day that you can network during those activities that I'm sure you're not thinking about. And that's what I want you to think about right now. And I'd actually like you to take out a piece of paper and a pencil and write down a few of the things that you do during your day. Maybe you have children and you stop by the daycare center to pick them up. Well, you're going to be around other parents that have things going on in their lives. Maybe you go to the church or a synagogue once a week. Maybe you play sports with some group. Maybe you do pick up basketball or play golf or whatever. But all these people have a bunch of people that they know and people that they network with and that are very important in their lives. They can become important in your life, or they may become a resource for you in the future. So that's what's so important about it. Now, as we're going through looking at places to network, if we go back to the formal parts of networking, where you're going to a chamber of commerce or you're going to the Business Network International, you'll see that you may experience this, you may not. I experienced it where I got really nervous about the idea of walking into a room full of strangers, and I know a lot of other people do too. But there are some things that you can do to combat that problem. I did a lot of reading to begin with because that's the kind of person I am. If I'm scared to death of something, I got to get all the information I can about it. So I start reading like a maniac. But one of the things there were a couple of really great things that came out of that. I got some good ideas with regard to techniques you can use. The first one was the buddy system, and that was the one that I latched onto because it was take a friend with you. I found somebody that was better at networking than I was. We went, and there were three things that came out of that. First of all, I had somebody to be comfortable with because I knew them. They were my security blanket. And when you're getting started, it doesn't really matter how you get started, just get started with it. You'll learn along the way. The next thing was it created an accountability. It's so easy at the end of the day when you've planned to go to something and suddenly the end of the day shows up and you're kind of scared to do it anyway, and then, oh, you know what, I think, boy, I really don't have time to do this because I've got something going on. I think I'll just skip it. No, if you've already planned to do that with someone, now you've got accountability. And the third thing is you can brag about each other to the people that you're talking, so you're not having to toot your own horn, right, when you're networking. So that's an important part of it. And it will help you get through some of that nervousness. One of the other things that I found was very helpful, there's 5 words that you can use to create a really good conversation with people, and you can turn it around back to them. And how you do it is you just use these 5 words: who, what, where, when, and how. And you can incorporate those into sentences. I would recommend you do not use the word why. And the reason is it comes across a little bit confrontational. You don't want to be confrontational. Instead of saying, why did you do that, when maybe you didn't even mean to be confrontational, but it can kind of come out that way. Instead of saying, why did you do that, you could say, well, what led you to do that, right? There's ways of wording things to get the same message out when you're really not using the word why. So that was a big part of it for me. The other thing, there is a technique by a woman, you may have heard of her, Patricia Fripp. And you can go to her website at fripp.com. She is an amazing speech coach, and she has something she calls the IU ratio, and I'm not going to go into it here, but it's really worth checking out. That video is on her website, and you can order it. I don't get anything from anybody ordering it, but I just really recommend it. I think she does a great job with that. And when you're looking, or when you're talking to people, and they're in front of you, and you're turning the conversation back to them, they feel more like the star. And they're in the spotlight, and most people really like to talk about themselves. and it's a good way to get the limelight off of you, right? Because now they're talking about themselves. There's a little story that I wanted to relate to you. It's about William Gladstone and Benjamin Disraeli. They were political rivals back in the 19th century, and they had different philosophies about dealing with people. And there were a couple of, well, there's actually one woman that had dinner with both of them on consecutive nights, separately. One night was William Gladstone, one night was Benjamin Disraeli. And after the dinner that she had with them, someone asked her to comment on the two men. And her comment was, after I left the dinner with William Gladstone, I thought he is the most amazing person, the most clever person in England. But after I left the dinner with Benjamin Disraeli, I thought I was the most clever woman in all of England. It is so important that when you're working with people in your relationships, whether they're your personal or public relationships, it is so important that you help them to feel important. And the success of your relationships are going to depend on your ability to make people feel like they really are the most important person there at that time. Toastmasters.